Hello and welcome to the Celtic Way morning briefing for Thursday, October the 6th. It's the morning after the night before and all that. So joining me to discuss Celtic's 3-1 Champions League defeat to RB Leipzig is TCW news writer Aidan Macdonald. How are you doing, Aidan? Recovered?
It's just about, Sean. How are you?
Similar feelings here, really. But we go again, as the saying goes. So, first of all, £1 for 2 months offer is still running. So you can take advantage of that by going onto the website, which is www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. I'll put the link in the comments as I always do. And for that, you'll get full access to all the content we put up there, whether it be, if you want to read it, detailed Celtic player ratings from last night, the analysis that's coming through today, and tomorrow, or all the fantastic big interviews and features in our archives. You'll be able to read it all. I should note, actually, while we're on that this is the last day of our £1 for 2 months offer. So grab it while you can. It's also the last day for our Twitter competition to win a Celtic home top, which I'll put the link to in the comments as usual as well. And the reason that both of those are coming to an end today is because tomorrow we'll have a very, very special announcement for you. I'm very excited to tell you all about it, actually. It's a belter. But for now, Aidan, let's talk about Leipzig. I suppose we need to.
Yeah, unfortunately we do. It was just one of those nights, Sean, to be honest, wasn't it? I think there was bright moments, but overall it was a disappointment.
What did you make? I'm going to put this comment up right away because it's the first question I've got. What did you make of the way that Leipzig set up, Aidan? Because Beach Boy's saying their formation was like a 4-2-4. Actually, he's actually talking about Celtic's formation. I didn't realise that. Then we'll come to that as well because I've got stuff on that as well. I'll leave it up to read anyway. First question, Aidan, what did you make of Leipzig, the way they set up and the way that they approached the game?
I thought it was very interesting, particularly when we've heard so much about Nkuku and Werner's like attacking prowess. The fact that neither one of them was actually the main striker, and obviously you could see why, because the boy Silva that was up front was excellent as well. I thought Leipzig were very impressive. A lot of times they just kind of bypassed our midfield and almost outran us and just kind of pressed us out the game. They were very good overall, and Celtic just couldn't really deal with it. Obviously, we expected them to have a good chunk of the ball and be very attacking because they're at home, finishing the top four in the Bundesliga last year. Won the German Cup, Europa League semi-finals, so we knew they'd be a good team. But yeah, they were very impressive, and the way they set up was. You can see how, from their fans' point of view, that's probably exciting to watch.
I was surprised, right? I was surprised. I was taken aback a wee bit by the way that they set up tactically because they seemed to encourage Timo Werner to roam about just everywhere rather than kind of sticking to the left wing. Because I thought with him out left and David Raum coming up from deep from fullback that Juranovic would really have his hands full and Maeda would be playing there to combat that in a way. But Werner was popping up everywhere. He was just allowed to float wherever he wanted, which is a particular kind of problem. And Christopher Nkunku was essentially another striker behind and around Andre Silva. As you say, he played well. I didn't expect them to go with that. There was some similarity in that with how they played against Dortmund in the last half hour or so, but I didn't necessarily expect that from the start. I think it messed with Celtic, to be honest with you. I think the defence ended up sitting a wee bit deeper than they probably should have. And I think Leipzig loved playing the ball into that gap between them. Between them and the midfield, the defensive midfield. And Nkunku in particular took advantage of that. I thought he was excellent. You mentioned Andre Silva there. He was really good, taking nothing away from him. I think I actually looked at the lineup and thought, right, he's starting. I'm actually not quite. I'm not too fussed about that because he's not really been hitting the heights he hit with Eintracht Frankfurt with Leipzig. Still a formidable player, as you saw last night, but he'd only scored twice this season and they were both against a fourth-tier team in the Cup. He wasn't scoring goals. So I thought, that's not the worst of selections from a Celtic point of view. Fortunately, the way that it played out, he did have a good game. He did score. We'll come to that one later, I think. But yeah, speaking of Leipzig's goals, any of them avoidable in any way, apart from obviously the second one, which we'll come to?
Yeah, I think the first one was also avoidable, Sean, as well, to be honest. The way McGregor kind of miscontrolled the ball from our corner and lost it. It was a quick counter-attack, good finish from Nkuku. I don't know if Joe Hart had to come out maybe quite quick as he did for that one. I don't know if that's maybe an unfair criticism, and to be fair, it's a really good finish. I don't think Juranovic could have done much about that. The boy's very fast, as is Juranovic, so he was in behind him. And you lose it quick in a kind of counter attack like that, it's always going to be difficult to defend. The third goal, yeah, it was kind of the game almost felt done at that stage, to be honest, even though there was only a goal in it before that went in. I definitely think the first goal was preventable, Sean, from the way it started.
In Kunku, I mean, there is sometimes no legislating for quality. I think the McGregor mistake in the build-up was obviously the heavy touch and he comes back. He actually gets back. I don't know if the Motherwell game hadn't happened, does he kind of maybe take him down? I don't know. But he did get back, so I think it was understandable he didn't take him down. He actually, I think it was McGregor's foot that prodded it into Nkunku's path. But after that, Juranovic, I know you're saying he couldn't do much more, but he was out-muscled and out-paced, so like it was there and was simply brushed aside. He almost got back for the clearance, didn't. Hart, I don't think I can criticise him too much for coming out. Maybe in the manner it was rounded, but again, I think that's nitpicking. I think it was just a really good player, staying composed when other players very well might have saw Hart coming out, Juranovic at the side of them, and either not have had the athleticism or the composure to do that. And Nkunku had both, is what I would say for that one. For the third goal, because again, I take it we'll dedicate quite a bit to the second goal, but the third goal, initially I thought it was the only time Greg Taylor let their right back really get the run on him on that side and exploit that space without covering. But then when I saw it back, I'm thinking maybe Jota's got a wee case to answer in terms of tracking back as well. So aside from that, it was a really well worked goal. It was a nice switch of play from Nkunku. Their right back controlled it well to actually get it across and stuff. So and it was a good finish. So I think it was a very good goal, the third goal, as much as it was potentially avoidable. Yeah, I think probably leave it there on Leipzig's goals until we come to the second goal, which is more of a Celtic conversation anyway, I think. But we'll be doing a full data roundup on the website this afternoon, so look out for that. That'll have like a pass networks, race charts, which I'm about to put up, defensive stats, all that kind of stuff. And I'll put, well, I've got it, we'll put our detailed player ratings in there if you do want to read them. But on that note, Aidan, I've got a wee graphic to show you. All right, I'll put it up on the screen here. It's the XG race chart, which might seem a wee bit daft to begin with, but it's basically, you're looking at it there, it's basically showing, it's a fancy way of saying, here's the shots each team took and showing how good they were at creating chances across the 90 minutes, basically, right? So these trend lines to me say, well, Leipzig were marginally more threatening, Celtic still stuck with them until you reach the 47th or 48th minute. But what happened in that minute, Aidan, was Celtic scored. So then what happened? Did Leipzig take it as a warning and kind of rev up a bit? Did Celtic start thinking, here we might actually get something, and it actually outside them a wee bit? What do you think, Aidan? What do you reckon? Because after scoring, as that chart suggests, Celtic did virtually nothing of note, whereas Leipzig went from strength to strength.
I think probably the first point you made, Sean, about it almost being like a warning to Leipzig. That was kind of the way it read to me. I mean, like you say, even without looking at the stats, from the eye test, you were able to see that after we scored, Celtic offered very, very little. And even when they did I think the odd time, Kyogo, I think he might have kind of picked up the ball or maybe won it off one of their kind of defenders or more sitting midfielders in their half, but it didn't really look like Celtic were going to be able to score again. So I think they probably just took that as a warning, Sean, to be honest. But it obviously, I'm sure we will come to Celtic's goal. It was a really good goal. I don't want to underplay that, but yeah, it looks like Leipzig just kind of took that, brushed that aside, and just got on with it, to be honest.
Yep. Got a few comments here. I'll put that down for now, but it does bring me on my next topic. But regardless, yeah, got a couple of individual comments, but in terms of the way that Celtic played, Patrick McLaughlin points out as long as Celtic's first choice centre back pair are missing, he thinks they'll struggle in Europe. Chilpal saying he felt that Celtic really missed Abada, whether as an option or from the start, presumably. Yep, I think that's fair enough. Michael Ross saying he thought Celtic looked lightweight. Patrick McLaughlin back in, Celtic simply not good enough at this level. Michael Ross again saying Hearts' confidence is gone. Do you agree with much of that, Aidan? Is it more general? Is that some of that a wee bit harsh in terms of basing it off maybe one game?
I think if you take the individual performance, we did look a bit lightweight, so I agree with comments like that, and we did seem to struggle. I think is in the overall Champions League campaign. I mean, obviously, despite Shakhtar beating Leipzig 4-1, it is clear to see that Leipzig are a step up from the Ukrainian side. So I didn't think we looked particularly lightweight in the second game. And first, 55 minutes in the first game, we competed well. But last night, I think all those comments based on the individual performance are pretty valid, to be honest. And I seen Joe Hart was getting a mention in there, which I'm sure we will come to, Sean.
Yep. Kookaburra saying the Hart moment was a turning point. It took the wind right out of Celtic's sails. Kaiser saying frustration and negativity kicks in at 60 minutes. I'd argue it kicked in before that, I think. I think it's probably, given I just took that race chart down, I maybe still left it up, but we'll come on to the next topic, which, Aidan, is Celtic's goal and the chances that they created. Now, O'Reilly had the first kind of attempt in the opening 4 minutes or so, which was actually a potentially decent chance, I thought, although it was blocked by Gvardiol, but it was a tame shot rather than a good chance. I think that made it a kind of a non-chance, but it was a potentially good one. He got the ball in the box. I think it was Hatate played it through him. He actually had a decent game. Jota's goal was statistically Celtic's best chance. So technically they did take the one that they'd have been truly expected to score, if you want to look at it that way, Aidan. The way I kind of looked at Celtic's chances in general is focusing on Kyogo. He had 3 headed attempts, 2 missed, 1 saved, which to me in itself usually means that something's not quite clicking creatively, when that's the only way that he's really getting shots off. The one shot that he got with his foot was when Hatate played that cracking first time pass through after a bad pass from Leipzig rather than from Celtic's own creativity, and he just waited a fraction of a second too long for it to drop and it was blocked. But to me, seeing Kyogo having to rely on headed attempts tells me that creatively Celtic weren't quite at it. Do you agree with that?
I do agree that we probably did lack a wee bit in the creative space. I think we did have chances though, as you've just pointed out, Sean, and I think the O'Reilly one, it's really important to mention that, because right at the start it was quite open, and then Celtic did kind of smother Leipzig in that moment. The press was quite good, and then at the time when you see it's blocked, but it wasn't until when I watched a wee bit of it back last night after the game that I realised that was a good opportunity. In terms of other chances, as you're saying, the fact Kyogo is relying on headers probably did show that we weren't creating as much as we used to. I thought actually for the header, it was a good cross in Maida, and Kyogo kind of did the best he could there because it was whipped right in at a lot of pace. He caught it well and it was a good save from the keeper. He also mentioned his shot. It was deflected. He probably just waits a wee bit too long for it to come down. So there was definitely opportunities in the first half. Obviously nowhere near as many as the Shakhtar game, but there was chances to be there. And if you maybe even score one of them, then maybe it's a different game. But it's if buts and maybes, isn't it?
Yep. Loopy 33 saying, in their opinion, there was only ever one other clear-cut Celtic chance, and that's when the ball bounced around the box and Yen skied it.
Actually,
I don't know if that was a clear-cut chance. There was bodies in front of him and stuff, but obviously
it was an opportunity. But,
Yep. Overall, Aidan, right, Celtic had 12 shots. 5 of them were on target. 4 missed, 3 blocked. The 2 keepers, because obviously they had to sub their keeper off. Their captain's actually done his cruciate, by the way. Their 2 keepers made 4 saves between them. Leipzig, by contrast, 17 shots, 6 on target, 4 missed, 7 blocked, and Hart made 3 saves. That's not including the 2 disallowed goals, because they don't count towards the stats when the minute that they're disallowed. But if we're talking about individuals, Aidan, is there anybody you want to single out? But we'll just start with Joe Hart. We'll just start with him.
Yeah,
because I think that's the one that everybody's been talking about. That's why he's in the tagline. There's a few comments about him. What did you make of his performance?
So it's kind of hard to separate what I'm going to say now based off what happened. But in the first half, I thought there was a couple of opportunities when he was really sharp in terms of grasping the ball. The one that springs to mind is right at the very start. I'm trying to remember what Leipzig players were involved, but I think it basically deflected. It looked like he was just going to hit off somebody and go in, and he was very quick to just react. A few times he collected the ball in that well, and he's up until the second goal, his distribution was okay. But obviously, and like you said, they made some good saves throughout the game as well. There was also one I think in the first half, it was offside, but it was a really good save from Joe Hart. But I think overall it's got to be a kind of negative rating for him based off what he did for that goal. And I will say I respect that he came out after it and held his hands up. You know, he took full responsibility, as you would kind of expect from a player that experience. But you know, when they've just had a goal chopped off for it was offside, wasn't it?
What one?
Yeah, the second goal, or was that for Joe
That was
Hart's?
a really good finish by. It was Andre Silva, I think, was blocking his view in an offside position. So
yeah, it was a brilliant finish from the guy. When you've just had that, you know, bear in mind that's the second goal you've had chopped off, and it's one each at that stage, and Celtic have been a wee bit out of the game. Just need to, you know, I know Ange likes us to break quick, so I understand that it's the way we're going to play, and it's. I'm not even going to say that we shouldn't be passing out from the back, but I just think he was maybe just a wee bit too quick to move the ball, and yeah, he passes it right to him, and it's a body blow at that stage, to be honest.
I don't think he was necessarily too quick playing out. I think he actually dilly-dallied a wee bit and then felt like he had to hit it. Like he had to hit it, even though, well, I'll come to it. But for me, when it comes to Joe Hart's performance, you cannot get away from that blunder. Because aside from that, I did think he did okay in terms of saves made. And there was a point, his quick reactions to come out and kind of claim the stuff at people's feet, stopped a 3-on-1 that Leipzig had fashioned for themselves and stuff. But ultimately, you can't get away from that blunder. It changed the complexion of the game. I think the comment was it Kookaburra says it took the wind out of Celtic sails. I think that's right. Although, as I say, in terms of chances created, Celtic were offering very little after they scored anyway at that point. But I do agree that at 1-1 you're still in it. There's still a chance. You can still potentially take advantage of a mistake again, like they did for that goal, like they did for the Kyogo chance I mentioned that Hatate played it through in the first half. You don't need to be creating chances left, right and centre for that to be the case if it's 1-1. But once that happens, I think it did get into their heads. As Postecoglou said after it that he felt, if anything, they were already in their own heads after they scored because they were already going too negative with their passing, and that's why it was back at Hart all the time. In that specific situation, I disagree, because when you look at how that played out, there wasn't really an option to play it forward. Leipzig were pressing. Hart was the automatic choice to play it to, and that's part and parcel of being a Celtic goalkeeper just now. We see that in pre-season. We've seen it all virtually every game. I do think rather than rushing his pass to play it out on that occasion, it was he felt, I really need to play this out. Didn't see an option. Taylor showed for it. Then he waited slightly too long and then thought, I really need to play it now. Played it wrong. Just as he says, missed it. But what do you say to chat about dropping Joe Hart, Aidan? We've got a few comments here. Susan Finlay saying, we certainly shouldn't be dropping Hart. He's been immense for Celtic, and as fans, you need to stop jumping on the bandwagon because, in her opinion, they're not a Champions League side. Conversely, David Bradley saying Hart has to be dropped to show that his bad performance just won't do. And Mark just asked the question, is Siegrist due a start on Saturday? Now, Aidan, what do you say about that? There is more than a few suggestions elsewhere saying it's time for Benjamin Siegrist to get a run. Should Hart be dropped, /rested, /taken out the firing line, whatever way you want to put it?
Yeah, at full time last night, I did see a lot of people online in particular saying that maybe it is time for Joe Hart to drop out of the team. I personally disagree. It was a blunder, and I know sometimes he's at feet. He's maybe with his feet, so he's maybe not the best, but he has made a lot of important saves over his time at the club, and I just think it's at the moment it doesn't balance it out enough for him to be taken out of the side. I understand why that is kind of the go-to to replace the goalie, but I can't see Ange doing it, particularly, which maybe shouldn't factor in because obviously it should just be the kind of best person in that position who thinks he can play. But I think the fact that Callum McGregor, regardless of how his injury is, he's not going to be playing at the weekend due to suspension. I imagine Joe Hart will be the automatic choice to start the game as a captain, given that he got the captain's armband last night when Callum McGregor went off. So I can't see Joe Hart being dropped, and I think it would maybe be a wee bit harsh as well, Sean. To be honest, I know last night is a sore one and it's still raw for a lot of people, given it's less than 24 hours ago. But I think it'd be a bit of a drastic change, and I think it could maybe dent his confidence if we were to replace him. I don't know what your thoughts are. Maybe you disagree, but
No, my thoughts are I'm firmly against that, against the notion of dropping him. Not because I think Hart is infallible or irreplaceable, but because I don't think it will benefit him or really the team. I think he can be given critical encouragement behind closed doors without dropping him from the team. I think he made several, as I say, several decent to good saves. Not world class, not outstanding, but decent to good saves last night, aside from that howler. And it was daft, the blunder, it was daft. And yes, Hart said himself, it's basically rooted in Ange wanting to play out from the back. But these players have and always have had the agency to decide what the best course of action is in a specific situation at the time. They're not robots, never have been. It's a preference, it's an instruction, but obviously in the moment they've got the wherewithal to decide what they think's the best option. So it was all Hart's decision to try and play it out to Taylor. And it was his poor execution that caused it, not the notion of playing it out as often as you can, if you want to put it that way. Now, does that, and must be said, a few discouraging moments in recent games mean he should be dropped? Not yet for me. I think he brings more to the team than just saves, as evidenced by the fact that it's him that gets the armband when McGregor's not there. And with McGregor presumably going about, you would imagine taking him out of the team as well would potentially be something that Ange isn't even considering. But more than that, I just don't see it as a moment for Ange to say, you're dropped. I see it more as a moment for him to back his man and say, you're still the guy I want in there, go and show people why I think that type of thing. Others will and do have a different view on it, but that's mine.
Yeah, I think it is clear that it was not the system that contributed to us conceding that goal last night. Now, I know people say, oh, passing it from the back, he always tries to do it, but, as soon as you punt the ball up the field, as he did do at times last night with Joe Hart, it just ends up coming immediately back.
It does,
so
but that's not to say there's never a time to do it, because depending on the opposition, and last night they had most men covered. He could have tried to clip it longer. The thing is, Taylor actually did show. Taylor actively, as he always does tried to move into space to offer an option. Hart just executed it really poorly.
Yeah, it was his execution, and if he finds the ball, if he finds it properly, then you don't even think about it. It was just a frustrating moment, and obviously the fact that it came just, was it like a minute or something after that goal was flagged for offside? That kind of made that just a lack of concentration. And as you mentioned, there has been kind of times in the last few games, maybe not as major as last night, that it has seemed that Joe Hart and the defence in general have been lacking a wee bit of concentration and been passing the ball out. But I will just stick to my guns and say I don't think Joe Hart should be dropped.
Nah, Druce doesn't saying dropping Hart won't change a thing. The team need to find a way to pace themselves against better opposition. I think that's a good point, because it's so different playing for Celtic in the Champions League as opposed to, or Europe in general, as opposed to domestic football, because it's just such a different task. You're almost all offence minded in domestic football, and you're exerting yourself really in just one direction for the majority of the game. Against European level opposition, that's not the case, and that's maybe why in all three games, I would argue, you reach about 60-65 minutes, and subs included, even legislating for subs, they still look a wee bit exhausted, jaded, maybe unable to keep that intensity. So I think that's a good point by Drew. Other individuals, Aidan, we spent a lot of time talking about Joe Hart there, but Stephen Welsh got a lot of criticism, a lot of doubts before the game, Champions League debut. I thought he did fine. I think he found it difficult at times with Andre Silva and Christopher Nkunku, but that, I think, was to be expected, and most defenders in world football will find it difficult at times. His passing was accurate. I think only Joe Hart had a higher pass accuracy, which is quite funny. He had a couple of interceptions, had probably about 8 or 9 clearances. Don't remember him getting beaten in the air either. So, good night for Stephen Welsh, despite the result.
Yeah, I thought Stephen Welsh was fine, and like you said, there probably was some fans that had concerns about him before the game, but his passing was okay, and he did struggle at times against the forwards, but as you've mentioned there, a lot of players would have a much kind of higher quality, or not even more high quality, a lot more experience than Stephen Welsh. They would have struggled there as well. So no, I thought he was okay. I definitely thought that he probably had a better game than James, I would say. Who at times was a wee bit erratic. But I thought overall Stephen Welsh was quite good, and didn't do himself any harm because he's obviously going to be playing for the next wee while, I would imagine. Although I suppose we don't really know about Cameron Carter-Vickers, maybe he will be ready soon, but if we just kind of assume it's still going to be a couple of games without him, Welsh is going to get that game time. So if he can take the positives from his performance last night and continue on, then I don't think he's done himself any harm, Sean. He wasn't at fault for any of the goals, do you know what I mean? So
no, I think he did all right. I'm actually going to throw up this Hart comment just because there's a good response to it under it. Through and through says, Joe Hart is on record saying Ange told him to play that way no matter what. The defeat is down to the manager simply. And I was going to respond to it, but Darryl's response sums it up. Joe Hart passed it straight to the RB Leipzig player. Did the manager tell him to do that? So that would be my response to it. As I say, they've got agency to play the passes as it stands in front of them, and Joe Hart just played the wrong pass, executed it poorly. It's not the system. It's not Ange that told him to play that pass. So there's a comment here off the back of the Welsh talk. Stephen McGonigal, Welsh was carrying Jens. What's your opinion on that? What did you make of Moritz Jens' performance, Aidan?
So obviously we mentioned briefly earlier on about his chance. It probably wasn't as good a chance as I actually thought it was at the time. I was almost howling at the TV thinking it was a sitter. I don't think it was quite to that extent. In terms of his defensive performance, I thought there was a few times last night, Sean, and particularly in the first half, where he gave the ball away when he wasn't necessarily under a lot of pressure. Obviously, I completely understand with the quality of that forward line. Even if they're not pressing you immediately, you're under a lot of pressure. But there was a few times I didn't feel that they were being pressed in. He just kind of gave the ball away to one of the Leipzig midfielders, and that put Celtic right on the back foot. Because when we're taking the ball out, we've maybe already committed a few bodies forward. So I thought at times his passing wasn't great. In terms of his actual defensive work, I think there was a couple of times in the second half and he did make okay interceptions and decent blocks, but I thought overall he did struggle. And I don't think it was like, a car crash of a performance from him and anything. And Joe Hart will probably get most of the headlines ahead of anything Jens did, but I didn't think it was great, and I thought Welsh performed a lot better than him.
I thought he really struggled. Personally, I thought I'm sure his stats will probably read just fine in terms of maybe pass accuracy, probably a couple of tackles, etc. But I really didn't think he coped well with the match. I thought his passing was slack on multiple occasions to put Celtic in danger. I thought his composure was erratic. And I think he let his own frustration at one point get the better of him a wee bit with that slide. I think it was Andre Silva near the end of the first half as well. One or two decent moments, but overall I didn't think Jens ever looked quite comfortable last night.
Yeah, at times his passing was particularly poor, and I do remember there was a few times in the first half where it felt there was nobody near him and he just kind of passed the ball right to the Leipzig midfielders. So yeah, it wasn't his best night, and probably on the back maybe struggling a bit against Motherwell at the weekend. He's probably not got the highest confidence, but then there's a high chance he will be playing at the weekend as well, Sean. Since at the moment we know obviously Ange will be talking about Carter-Vickers in his presser, but Jens will probably be playing, or there's a high chance anyway will be playing on Saturday. So hopefully a bit of a return to form for him because he did struggle.
Yep, Real Hatate, Aidan, I thought he took up quite good positions in general, and although not a game, I suppose, where he was on the ball as much as you would, or as often as you would like, I thought he showed very good awareness when he did get the chances, because it was him that played the kind of dangerous passes into the likes of Kyogo for his chance and for the goal when Kyogo laid it to Jota. I thought he was decent, maybe not as active defensively as the other main midfielders, but still a threat. Matt O'Reilly, I thought it was an odd night for him, Aidan. Said in the ratings that this was a game where his kind of off-ball industry rather than his on-ball quality was noticeable. I referenced when I was talking to Graham yesterday when you were off the briefing that Alan Morrison wrote quite an interesting column about the way that O'Reilly's been used lately, further up, meaning less involved in the kind of danger areas for his traditionally creative role. He'll be up there for pressing and counter-pressing numbers last night, maybe tackles and stuff as well. But on the ball, I would say he wasn't quite at it again, like the game against Motherwell. I think it'll be another game without a key pass, for instance, which for O'Reilly's not what you want to see. But I think off-ball, good, coordinated presses, which in the final third was actually not bad. It was the gap between the defence and the midfield that I thought let Leipzig in. But pardon me, off ball good, on ball not so good is what I'd say about O'Reilly.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. There was a few times that he picked up the ball in decent positions, as we mentioned, that one right at the start. And I know he was being closed down, but it's a good position to maybe either try and pass to somebody else, get a shot away, and it just kind of hits right off the defender. A few other times he had the ball in the middle of the park and he, gave it away. But I do agree with you that off the ball, I thought he was quite good. Particularly at times in that first half, he was a really important part of the press going forward.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as we know with Matt O'Reilly, we know his quality, and a night like that, you probably are looking for a wee bit of magic for him to find that ball in behind. But he did struggle, and I'm not surprised that the kind of no key passes start, because I can't really remember him making an unreal pass during the match. So yeah, it was a frustrating night for O'Reilly, like a few players probably.
We I was going to say we saw a debut, but technically we saw it against Motherwell, didn't we, for 2-3 minutes or whatever it was. But a first substantial sighting, we'll put it that way, of Oliver Abelgard, Aidan. Mark pointing out that he probably will be in for Callum McGregor this weekend. I suppose it depends on the status of Aaron Moy. James McCarthy got game time last night. Is there a chance him? Maybe. I think Mark's probably right. It will probably be Abelgard from the start on Saturday. What did you make of him? And he's however long it was, 50 odd minutes.
I thought he did okay. Obviously, we need to take the caveat of the fact he's obviously nowhere near. He's got some match sharpness, obviously, after playing a few minutes and getting a good few weeks training under his belt. But in terms of being able to play about 90 minutes or come on at a game at that early stage, I think he's probably not quite up to that sort of level of fitness. I thought he did okay. I thought he made a few decent interceptions. He was relatively tidy with the ball. There was a few times, particularly near the end, where he did lose it, or he gave the ball away directly, or he maybe just couldn't get to somebody that was running past him in time. But I'll kind of balance that out by saying maybe that was due to a lack of fitness rather than poor decision making and a lack of ability. I thought he went okay, and he's a player that I think we're both excited about, and we've seen with the scouting and that what he can offer. That is probably the sort of game that he's ideal for when you're going to be under the cosh a wee bit. So, I thought there was enough positives in his performance, but it's hard to tell given that he's not fully fit, Sean.
I mean, he'll play, well, they will all play the role differently to McGregor. Aaron Moy, in terms of on-ball capability, in terms of keeping possession, is probably the closest, but certainly not on McGregor's level in terms of overall mobility, everything else that McGregor offers. Abelgard will play it, as I say, differently to McGregor if he plays there. Chilpal saying he'll probably get a run in the team. Curtis saying Abelgard came into the game as it went on. I actually thought the opposite. I thought he started pretty well, and then the kind of lack of match fitness got to him nearer the end. I done actually, I'll put it in the comments, I done a quick instant reaction kind of summary of what I felt when I saw him last night, the instant reaction. Not any sort of data involved, just the eye test, purely and simply what I made of him. I've put the link in the comments. But I thought, you're saying well, he got a few first team minutes. Realistically, right, and this is what, maybe I'm making too many allowances for him, but that's Motherwell game aside, which was like 3-4 minutes. That's the first substantial bit of first team football he's had since December 2021, out with a handful of games for Ruben Kazan back in, I think, March and April. So that's maybe a massive caveat, and maybe I'm making too many allowances, but I thought he was all right. I did think he did okay, despite what I'm saying to Curtis's comment that I thought he actually faded a wee bit as the game went on.
Yeah, and you also mentioned about his minutes there. I don't think he wasn't really involved in a proper pre-season. I think Ange mentioned he was doing a lot of training on his own and stuff. So, yeah, if he can get to full fitness, then I think he looks like he could be a decent option. And it's just a hard game to come on to as well. Do you know what I mean? But obviously, maybe ideally, if that Livingston game had taken place, that might have been a chance that he could have maybe got a few more minutes. It may not have been ready anyway, so it might not have mattered. But I thought it was positive enough, Sean, when he came on.
Sean Ross, that's a great comment, because I was waiting with bated breath last night to hear Ange asked about David Turnbull, and he wasn't. He was in the stadium though, Aidan, so it can't be like massively serious, but I'm sure we'll find out today or tomorrow. Same with McGregor. That's the real one, innit? We need to know how long McGregor's potentially out for. He did struggle on. It must be noticed. It must be noted. He did go down and then get back up and play for another 10 minutes or so. So
yeah, It was, yeah.
Hopefully that means it's not too bad, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything either, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know. Just obviously, with Turnbull, I was surprised he was not. Ange wasn't asked, or there was no kind of comment came out last night. Hopefully, maybe it was just. Hopefully, like we're hoping with Aaron Moy, it was just a slight knock. I mean, the fact that, and maybe it's more of a case than actually. Obviously, he dropped out of the Scotland team, as we know. Then he came back in against Motherwell. Then he's not involved. So obviously, maybe something else separate's happened within the time frame of the Motherwell game.
Yep.
Hopefully he's okay, because he's a good option to have, whether it's starting or on the bench. And yeah, fingers crossed, I guess. I'm sure that's something else Ange will be asked about his press on Friday.
We'll talk more about Callum McGregor tomorrow, I suspect, when more information comes to light. But Wombat, let's leave it on a silver lining, shall we? These young lads will benefit from these nights in years to come. The title of this, apart from Should Celtic Drop Joe Hart, was Lessons from RB Leipzig, and there's plenty of lessons there to be learned, isn't there, Aidan?
Oh yeah, plenty of lessons. And guys like Stephen Welsh, etc. Or even Matt O'Reilly, because I think people forget how young Matt O'Reilly is as well.
Yeah.
They will all take experience and become better players as a result of that, no doubt, sure.
Right, I think we've rabbited on for 40 minutes. We could go for another 40 probably, but for now, I think we'll leave it there. Just another wee reminder that we're running that Celtic Top giveaway on our Twitter account, but it ends today, so this is your last chance to enter it. So if you want to get involved, I'll put the link in the comments, but you can also just go to the Twitter account, retweet the post, follow the account, and that'll be you in the draw, which takes place later today. And the reason that that's taking place today, not tomorrow as initially intended, is because we've got something even better to tell you tomorrow. So trust me, very good reason, and you'll want to look at the website and come at the briefing tomorrow for that. But I think we'll call it there, Aidan. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day as much as you can. Anyway, I'm away to dive into the data, so pray for me. But yeah, we'll catch up again with you tomorrow. Appreciate all your comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you then.
Cheers, guys.